All right. Well, today we're going to talk about making a Wordle app, or an app like Wordle, I should say. Basically, you type in a word, that's 5 letters, and then you you hit enter, you click a button, and and then it checks if how many of the letters in that word are correct or are present in the target word, and then it prints that out, and then you enter in another word, and you just keep going. So that's a pretty simple thing. So for our Wordle app, our overall strategy is going to be to first work on the logic of the application and get that all working. And then once that's done, we will make it look pretty using some CSS and a little bit of JavaScript. And we'll do that in a later video in this series. What you're seeing here is the actual shiny Wordle app at the end. And this does take a little bit of CSS and JavaScript work, but it can be done. So, the way that I like to get started with problems like this is to just start with something really, really basic and then build it up. So there's some problems where that's not really the appropriate approach, but for something like this, I think that's the way to go. So first we'll work on the logic, and then later on we can work on making it look nice. But the first thing is to get the game logic working properly. All right, so got our studio started, and I also already have my word list here. So I won't go into the depth about how to do that, but it's there. So let's start by making a simple Shiny app. Library Shiny. The UI is, we'll start with a fluid page. And I'm just going to put in a text input for now. Right, so that's the thing that how people interact with it is they type in text into an input. Text input, call it guess. And we won't put a label on it. And all right, there's that. And server function input output. And oh, actually, sorry. The first thing I'll do is not just have people type in input, but I'll just have it print out what they typed. So we'll do a verbatim text output. Let's load up Shiny so we can get some autocomplete. Verbatim text output. Call it result. Oh, and also, little tip, we'll do placeholder equals true. Okay, so then that will just make it so the text output is always visible. Otherwise, when there's no content in it, it's not visible. So that it can be a little bit surprising if it sort of appears out of nowhere or disappears when there's no content there. Okay, so let's see. Let's do output result, and for right now, we're just going to have it echo the text that the user types in. Text. We'll do input $guess, and then Shiny app UI server. Okay, so now RStudio recognizes it's an app, and just for convenience, since this is a little thing, I want it to show up in the little viewer panel down here. So, I already have it set up that way, and I'll click Run App, and here's my app. Hello. It shows hello there. All right, so that's the very start of our Wordle app. So right now it's a little bit, every time I type anything, it's going to show it down here. But I only really want it to do something with the input when I say I'm ready. So I'm going to do that by adding in a button. So say action button, and we'll call it go, and we'll label it go. And now we have this render text here. There's actually a number of ways we can do this, but I'll show you one of the sort of relatively new ways of doing it. I can use bind event. So if you're familiar with like event reactive or observe event, you can have those things run only when a particular, when some other reactive thing happens. So like when a button is clicked. And so you can actually use bind event with reactives and observers, but you can also use it with these render functions. So I can say bind event input $go. Okay, so it will only run, it'll only update this and or execute this and update the result text when the go button is pressed. And I still haven't figured out the best way to do indentation for this. So it looks a little funny here. And I'm using the new R 4.1 style pipe here, since I'm running that version of R. Okay, and I'll save it and reload. So I can say hello, and nothing should happen until I press go. Say goodbye. Again, nothing happens until I press go. And now, and it's just replacing the content of this this text output right now. So that's so now is a good time to start doing something with that. Okay, so let's see. One thing that, let's see, how do we do this? So in Wordle, all of your guesses are limited to words that are 5 characters. And actually on top of that, they're actually limited to words that are in a particular word list. But let's just start off by limiting it to if ncharv input $guess is not equal to 5, then, well, I'll show this sort of the naive way of doing it first, and then do something a little bit more sophisticated. And then, so if it's not 5 characters, then we'll just return out of this render text function, return nothing. Or actually, maybe we should return an empty string. And if it is 5 characters, then we move on, and I'll have it show this text. So paste, you entered input $guess. All right, reload. So I can say ABC, and if I click on here, nothing should happen. But if I say hello, which is 5 characters, it'll say you entered hello. And if I say goodbye, which is 7 characters long, well, it's not printing out you entered goodbye, but it is just making the result disappear. So that's actually not really what we want either. And there is a function in Shiny called rec, like short for require. And you can use it to exit out of here and not replace the previous contents of this output. So we can say rec false, and okay, actually normally if we just do rec false and we do this, so if I say hello, goodbye, it will still it'll still clear this, but what we need to say is rec false, cancel output equals true. So cancel output means don't modify any downstream outputs that are from this. And this actually is an output itself. But if this were like in a reactive expression that was consumed by an output, then that output would also not change. So let's say hello again and goodbye. And when I click on this, now it's not erasing the previous contents of this render text. Okay, great. And now we can compare it to, I guess we can compare it to our word list. So let's, at the top of this app, let's say source word list. Okay, and in this word list, there's actually 2 sets of words. There's common words, which are, that's a list of like 2,500 words, which are relatively common, or the most common 2,500 words in English. And then there's a larger list of words that are like all 5-letter words. The shorter list is ones that are, I guess, the target words, and the longer list is a set of words that users can use to guess. But some of them are really obscure, and it would be really, really hard if those were the target words. So, oops, let's source wordlist.r, and let's see. Actually, let's just run that. And oops, let's put that there. Source wordlist.r. Okay, we have words common 5 and words all 5. So those are the 2 character vectors that we have that contain all the words. So so right now we just want to show, or to right now we just want to move on from here if the word that they entered is an actual word in the words all list. So we can say if input $guess is in words all 5. Actually, sorry. Take out this parenthesis there. If it's not in words all 5, then cancel output. Okay, so let's run it. And again, hello should work. But if we just type in some random 5 characters, that should have no effect. Okay, so that's pretty good. Now we can actually start, we can we can use a target word and start processing people's guesses for that target word. Let's see. So we can do it. Well, we can do it inside the server function. If we do this, if we select a random word inside the server function, that means that each time somebody connects to this, they'll get a different word. And if we select a random word outside of the server function, then it will, as long as this app is running, and you don't like restart R or quit the app or something, or close the app from the R side, then everyone will get the same word. So that's let's do it that way. So there's words common 5, so we can just say target is sample words common 5 1. I think that's the right sample. Yep, just sample one of them. So, and actually, of course, we can always just run this at the console. I've got to stop the app first. Yeah, so that picks out one word, duchy. That would be really hard. Yet another thing you could do is do like set the random seed based on the date. I don't know. You'd probably do like as integer, sys.date. Is that okay? So yeah. So let's try this. And then, oops. Well, I guess we can print it out. So for today, the target word is gives. And then if we run this all again, so like let's say the app, shuts down, or if you're running this on a server where there's high load and you want this to be served up by multiple different R processes, then you want this to be repeatable. So let's run this again. And again, if we run target, it still gives. So anybody who connects today would have that word. And I guess, that actually works. Let's let's use that method for now. Okay, so yeah, so today the word is gives, and we're just using that by setting the random seed using today's date. All right, so let's see here. Okay, so now we want to compare. We want to do some sort of comparison to say, hey, is the word that the person entered, if they make it past this part there, like how well does that match up with the target word? And that's something where it makes a lot of sense to put that in its own function. And I will do that. I'll do that below the server function. So let's say, let's see, what should we call this? Check word function, and then we'll say the target word and the guess. All right, so what we want to say check is, not just are these two words the same. If it was that simple, we wouldn't need to make a function for it. But in Wordle, we need to know like how many, like which of these letters is in the guess is in the target word in the correct location, and which of those letters are in the target word and not in the correct location. So those are two things that we want this function to figure out. And so we're actually going to want this to return. I guess it could be a character vector or a list with like the status of each character in the guess. So for example, let's just let me just sketch this out here. So if, the target is gives, that's today's target word, and the guess is, okay, if the guess is aisle, then let's go through each of these letters here. So what we want to tell the user, the feedback that we want to give them is that A is not in the target word, I is in the target word, and it's in the correct location. S is in the target word, but it's in the wrong location. Right here. L is not in the target word, and E is in the target word, but in the wrong location. And in in the real Wordle game, those are it shows that with colors. And for right now, what we're going to do here is we're just going to sort of mark each letter from the guess, and we're going to return some information about it. So let's see. Yeah. So what we want to do is we want to iterate over each letter in the target and guess words and do a comparison. So the first thing to do is to well, should we do it this way? Yeah. So the first thing we can do is split those words into a character vector of letters. So if I say, actually, let me change this target. Okay, this is just going to be kind of a long variable name, target string and guess string. So we can say that the target, this is going to be a character vector. We say string split, or stir split, target string. And if I just give it an empty string here, it'll split it every character up. And so let's try this real quick, actually. So we can just do this in the console just to try things out. So if I say string split gives on an empty string, that will return this. Well, it actually returns a list that contains a character vector with the individual letters. So what we want to do then is extract the first element of that list. So let's hit that again. And now this is what we want. We want a character vector with those letters. Okay. All right. And the same thing for the guess. So let's copy that. Guess. Okay. And then after this, now we can iterate over each of the letters and compare them. So actually, one more thing that we should do ahead of time. We should make sure these words are the same length, just in case. I mean, the logic in that we had up above should make sure that both words are 5 letters, but just in case, we should check it here and throw an error if they're not the same length. So if nchar target string is not equal to nchar guess, let's say stop target and guess string must be the same length. Okay, so once we get down here, we know they're the same length, and then we can iterate over the words. All right, so let's say and we can do this with a simple for loop. There's other things you can do, like you could use mapply, but in this case, we can just use a for loop. So let's say for I in seek along target. So that should be 5. That should be 1 through 5, actually. We're going to do something. And letter. So let's say if guess I is equal to target I, then we're going to do something. And let's see, we need to, well, if they're the same, then we need to sort of mark that, and we need to save that somewhere. So let's actually create another a place to store this information. So we'll call this result, and we can say character vector. Oh, and actually, and we can pre-allocate this character vector. You know, for these really small things, like performance isn't really a big issue, but if you're working with larger data, then it can help to pre-allocate vectors. So I'll just do that now, even though in practice for this, it probably doesn't actually matter. But let's just say nchar guess string. Okay, so again, if I just, we can run it over here in the console and just see what that looks like. So if I say character 5, it creates a character vector with 5 empty strings in it. Yeah, so that lets us assign things into there without growing the vector in a loop, and because that can lead to performance problems. But again, it probably doesn't matter here. So let's see. So if the guess and the target letters are the same for a particular position, then let's say result I is, let's call it correct. We can say else if, so let's see if they're, yeah, if the guess and the target are the same, that's good. That's correct. But we also want to mark if the guess letter is in the target word, but in a different location. So we can say if guess bracket I is in target, then result I is, let's say, in word. Okay, and if it's not, then we'll say result I is not in word. Okay, so we're just gonna collect those results and return it. Results. Let's see, there we go. There's the end of our function. So I'm gonna hit just hit Command Enter to run this, and then we can test it out. So let's say check word gives, that's the target, and isle is our guess. So let's go through these. So the first one, A is not in the target, I is in the correct position, S is in the word, L is not in the target, and E is in the target. So that's okay, that's great. Yeah, just, to me, it just feels like this is the right size. Like this is a function that just does, it's one thing. It tells me, whether each letter is correct. And, I can build on top of that. I can use that information to see to check if everything is, if the entire word is correct. So maybe I should say this is compare words. Okay. And then I can use another function that uses this, and then it provides some more information, like whether or not their guess was correct. So let's make another function called check words, okay, and say it's going to actually take the same inputs. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to return a data structure that has a lot of useful information in it. So let's say, actually, do I want to do this? Yeah, okay, let's do this. Okay, so I'm going to say, okay, so compare result using some long variable names is compare words of these things. And then let's see, if, let's say all compare results equals, if they're all correct, then we know that then the person has finished the game, or they've won, right? So let's see. I'll say correct. It's true. So let's start with the default value. Correct, it's false. Actually, yeah, let's do it this way. And then we can return a list where the guess was guess string. This is the guess word. The result for each letter is this compare result, and correct is correct. Okay, so we can again do check words, gives, and isle. So this is a list. The guess was isle, and the result for each comparison is here, and this is not the correct word. But if we were to check gives against gives, yep, it should be gives is here, the result for each letter is here, and correct is true. And actually, I'm going to rename this to, I don't know, result, guess. Okay, never mind. That's actually, here, I'm going to give another field called letters, and that's going to be these letters from the guess split up, because that may be useful later. Okay. I guess I need a comma there. Oh, guess string. Okay. All right, so that's the word. Maybe I should call this word. Letters, result, and it's correct. Okay. So this actually may be more richer. This might be more and richer information than we actually need later, but it doesn't hurt to have that information now. Okay, so we've written our function to compare these words, and let's see. So we can say you entered. Well, actually, let's just take this and check words, target, input $guess. Now this is going to return a list, and the render text is probably not really going to like that. But what we can do is do render print. Well, actually, let's see what happens when we do it. It's probably not going to be great. So again, we know the target word is gives, and we're guessing isle. Yeah, so it's trying to, it's render text is expecting a string to be returned, but we're returning a list with a bunch of stuff in it, so it doesn't like that. But what we can do instead is use render print, and what render print will do is it'll take this result as if you printed it at the console, like here, and then it'll display all that information. Oh, oops, gotta reload. So I'll go. All right, and yep, so this is the information that we need, and let's say gives, that is the correct word. Correct. Okay, great. So now you know, we're doing the sort of the proper analysis on the word, but now we want it to print it in a nicer way. So I think so one way we can do it is for right now is we can print it out with like this, and I'll demonstrate, like putting brackets and parentheses around the letters. So if the target word, or if the user has entered isle, so let's say oops, we can put, if the letter is have anything, and E would also have parentheses. So we can print it out this way for now, so that the user has some information about which letters are correct. Print, but this is also a good place to to make a function to do the formatting. So let's say format guess. Yeah, format guess. So let's check words, call this result. Or maybe format, yeah, format result. So these are not great function names. Naming things is hard. And you know, when you're working on something that's small, you can sort of get away with using just sort of moving quickly and just picking a name and going on from there. But when you're working on like when you're working on bigger projects, it's more important to have good names, because if you don't, then you'll get really confused. But this is a small enough thing that we can be a little bit lazy about that. Okay, so I'll just define the function here. Format result function. This thing called result. Actually, let me call it. Well, guess data is a little bit long, but G data. Or actually, let's just call it R. So so we want to, for each letter here, we want to look at this correctness, the result. Wow, yeah, R dollar result. Again, okay, these are bad names, but we can. This is small enough that we can hold it in our heads. So we'll just iterate over each over these the letters and the result here, and put the proper brackets or whatever around it. So all right, let's do a for loop again for I in seek along letters. And we know that letters and result are the same length, so we don't have to do any checks there. So let's see. So if, oh, I'm sorry. Oh, that's right. That's right. So if we could say if R dollar result I, actually, this should be R dollar letters. Okay. If R dollar result bracket I is correct, parentheses there, then, okay, let's make it, okay, let's say this, call this out string. Oops. So let's do string is, okay, and we're going to do paste 0. We said square brackets. Oops. R dollar letters I, and then close bracket. Oh, and actually, we need to append that to the existing output string. Otherwise, we're going to overwrite it each time. So we actually need to do paste 0 out string and then stick this stuff on the end. And once again, I'm going to say, like, this is not the fastest way to do these things. If you are making a string by just appending stuff to it, it actually in R it actually will allocate new memory for it'll copy the whole string to a new location memory and then put more and append stuff to it. And that's not very efficient, but for this, since we're dealing with really small amounts of data, it's totally fine, and it's simple and it's fast enough. Okay, so if it's correct, we do that. Else, if, let's copy and paste this. If it's, what did we say? In Word, my else is messed up. Okay, if it's in Word, then we'll do the same thing, but we'll put parentheses around it. And else, we'll, instead of parentheses or brackets, we'll just use spaces. Okay, and then at the end, we'll return out string. Okay, so here we have the result. Let's check words. Okay, when we want render text, not render print. Reload. So I'll, wow, that's perfect. All right. And gives should be, okay, they're all correct there. Great. Hello, let's just try that one. Great.